What's going on, guys? My name is Will. If you have seen my other videos, I'm currently cutting, I'm dieting, I got pretty lean so far. I keep cutting until I reach about 5 to 7% body fat, hopefully. And yeah, I just want to make a video about how I personally get lean, what I pay attention to, what are the most important things, what are the key things, and yeah, just want to share my approach. I made like a couple of videos about this already, what I eat, and about my steps and everything, about my cardio, my workouts. Just want to talk a little bit more about this. My diet is still the same pretty much. I eat a big soup which contains lentils, potatoes, vegetables, a lot of spices and seasons, and this is my main meal, which I eat 2 or 3 times a day. And I always eat oatmeal with nuts, seeds, fruits, and this is always the same. So my diet is really kind of boring and there's really nothing crazy about it. I'm not a fancy guy. I'm not doing like all these crazy recipes that you see nowadays. I don't need them. I don't want them, to be honest. I just prefer like simplicity. I eat basically the same thing every day. I have a little variety in there, but it comes down to the same thing. So it comes down to the same things. It's really not that spectacular. I eat a lot of carbs, 400 to 600 grams usually. I eat about medium protein, 150 to 170 grams right now. And I eat pretty low fat, low to medium fat, 30 to 60 grams. So I just want to start out with the first advice, or the first thing I pay attention to. That's obviously the calories. So hopefully everybody knows by now, dieting and weight loss and fat loss comes down to a calorie deficit. Everybody needs to be in an energy deficit. That's the only way your body is going to burn off its own energy resources, which is body fat. And there is no other way. You need to be in an energy deficit to burn body fat, to lose body fat. Losing body fat and weight loss are actually two separate things. For example, if you go on a ketogenic diet, you can actually lose a ton of weight. You can lose a lot of water weight in the first couple of days or weeks, but in terms of fat loss, you could actually be stuck. You don't going on a ketogenic or low carb approach doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose body fat. Okay, it just means you're losing water weight, and you maybe have the potential to get into a calorie deficit by cutting out carbs and getting into a calorie deficit that way. But in reality, in theory, you could actually put on body fat while being on a ketogenic diet and losing weight on the scale. That's also possible. If you go on a ketogenic diet and you eat tons of fat and you eat 3,000 calories worth of protein and fats, and you only burn 2,500 a day, you are in a 500 calorie surplus, which is going to lead to fat gain. But on the scale, you can actually lose weight because you're losing so much water weight in the beginning. So don't get into this whole low carb ketogenic diet approach if you don't want to. There is no need for that. If it works for you, great, but I'm not a fan of it. I really hate it. I tried it years ago, and it was actually one of the worst diets I ever tried. I'm a big carb guy. There's nothing wrong with carbohydrates as long as you eat the right ones. They can be really nutritious. There can be a lot of fiber, micronutrients in there, and yeah, they just make me feel great. I have a lot of energy. I can do my workouts, my cardio, which I couldn't really on a low carb or ketogenic diet approach, which just burned me out basically. And what's the point of getting into a short-term diet that you cannot sustain and where you're just going to feel miserable and you don't even know if you're actually going to lose body fat, or you can't stick to it long enough to lose body fat? Because that's another thing. Losing body fat really takes a long time. I just made a transformation video the other day, and I basically went from 16 to 18% body fat down to about 10%, and it took me personally 4 months. So yeah, you really need your time. You need to give yourself enough time, and you're going to be better off in the long run. Okay, so basically the first tip is get your calories in check. Don't do any extreme diets. Don't cut out any macronutrient. You don't need to. You should just track your calories and see where you are and design the plan that works for you. And again, it doesn't mean ketogenic diets or low carb diets cannot work. They can definitely work, but they are not necessary, which some people think they are. Like some people just think about dieting, oh, I have to cut out carbs, or I have to limit carbs, which is just not right. Second advice, count your steps / cardio. Okay, so theoretically you don't need cardio to lose body fat. All you have to do is get into a calorie deficit, right? But that is the hard part. Getting into a calorie deficit long enough and sustaining that is really, really difficult without like increasing your step count, without doing cardio. It's just gonna be very, very difficult. At least it's for me. I do 15,000 to 25,000 steps, like kind of on average. On some days I do 10,000, on some I did 30,000. But on the average, I'm around that 20K number because you can count about 40 to 50 calories per 1,000 steps that you do. And yeah, if I do 20,000 steps, that's about 1,000 calories I burned, and I can basically do as much as I want to. Walking does not fatigue me to the point that I cannot work out or anything. It's very mild, and I got used to it, and it has no downside for me. I mean, it takes a lot of time, yes, but I'd rather put in the time to do cardio than to be hungry all day and end up not being able to, for example, being able to sleep or going to bed hungry or waking up at like 1 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't sleep because I had too little calories. And it's a very big difference for me to to be on a diet where I eat 2,000 calories and I'm in a 500 calorie deficit, or I eat 3,000 calories and I'm in a 500 calorie deficit. It's the same deficit, but it feels completely different in the real world. And this is mostly due to like micronutrients, fiber, you can fill up your stomach more often, and yeah, just carbohydrates in general for me. So overall, take care of your step count, of your cardio, look where you are, and try to increase that number. If you are stuck or you can't get leaner, just take as much control as possible basically. If you track your calories, you track your workouts, you track your steps, you know exactly where you are and you can adjust perfectly from there. If you do 5,000 steps right now, increase it to 10,000 if you can. Or, increase it gradually, go to 8,000, then 10,000, and maybe 12,000, 15,000, who knows what you can do and how much you can handle. Third tip would be intermittent fasting. I personally love intermittent fasting. I know some people kind of gave it a bad rap or don't like it. But for me personally, I love the fasted state and I also love the fed state. And it works perfectly for me. I've been doing this for years and I cannot feel any negative aspects in terms of gaining muscle or gaining strength. For me, it's not a problem. I actually have my best workouts in the morning fasted. All I have is black coffee, water, and I also put some salt into the water. And yeah, I feel great doing intermittent fasting. And when I have my meals, when it's time to eat and I have my meals, I'm actually satisfied. Some people say, people like Greg Doucette on the internet, they say they're never getting satisfied when they have to eat all their food in that shorter period of time. They're just too hungry because they fasted half the day. For me, that's not the case. I like bigger meals, and when I have that big meal, as a post-workout meal, I usually have 1,200 calories, and I'm really full, and I'm happy. I can wait for 4 hours or so for the next meal, and when I have that next meal, that's going to be a smaller meal, which may be 600 to 800 calories. I can wait for another 3-4 hours and have my last meal. So I usually eat about 3 meals. And for me, it works perfectly fine. I'm full, I'm happy. At the end of the day, I go to bed satisfied. And this is another thing. I eat close to bedtime. My last meal is around 7, 8 p.m. or so. And I go to bed usually around 9. And I go to bed happy and full, usually on most days. Not every day is the same, but again, it depends on how you do it and what you prefer. But yeah, for me it works great. And if I have a meal right before bed and I'm going to bed full, I also don't need a breakfast. I can work out perfectly fine in the morning without eating and push that meal to 12 p.m. or so. So maybe you want to try it out if you haven't and switch things up and see what works for you. But you have to give yourself time also. Like this is a diet, when you come from a diet plan where you eat like 6 times a day, it's gonna be different and you're probably gonna be really hungry at times in the beginning. But this is gonna go away because your body is basically getting used to whatever you do, right? It's always the same thing, like your body gets used to whatever you're doing and your body will release hunger hormones at the times you used to eat. So you have to give yourself time so your body adjusts and only sends you the signals whenever like you want to eat in the future. If you go down to 3 meals a day, your body will only, or for the most part, only create this hormonal impact on your appetite, like those times a day. Like I'm not hungry when I'm fasted in the morning. I have my black coffee and everything, and I'm not hungry, and I only get hungry when it's time to eat, or maybe slightly before that, but you know, I can push it off a little bit and I'm getting leaner, which also makes it a bit harder, but in general, easy to do for me. I like it, and I think it can be a great tool for some people, so yeah. Okay, my camera just died, and where was I? The fourth point, right? Okay, fourth point is finding out your maintenance calories. If you want to lose weight long term, it's basically all about taking as much control as possible. You want to know how many calories you eat, what macros, you want to know how many steps or cardio you do, and you also want to know how much your workouts burn roughly. And if you take control of all these factors, you know exactly where you are and you can always adjust from there, which is really, really important. So finding out your maintenance calories is another key point. The best case scenario would be you just track whatever you do right now, and you track your weight and your calories, and you see if I'm eating this amount of calories, I'm gaining weight, I'm losing weight, I'm maintaining weight, and you do this over a couple days or weeks, and you should be able to find out your calories if you do it right and you track precisely, if that's the right word. But I want to share a basic formula that I learned like more than 10 years ago that I used to use, but I'm not really using it anymore because I just know exactly how many calories I burn at what given day, depending on whatever I did. But when I used this formula, it worked pretty great for me, and I just want to share it. Maybe it gives you a good point to start, but keep in mind this is just a formula. It's going to be off for sure. And I think the heavier you are, if you're like obese or very overweight, I think the number you will get is gonna be too high. This is kind of more for the average person. But even if you're like slightly overweight, I think this is a pretty good formula. But it's very basic, and yeah, I'm just gonna share it. And this formula basically just starts off with your weight in kilograms. When you only know your weight in pounds, you just divide it by 2.2. And then you multiply your body weight in kilograms with 24. You roughly burn your body weight in kilograms in an hour. So let's just take me as an example. I weigh roughly 80 kilograms right now. So I would take 80 kilograms multiplied by 24. That's just your basic maintenance when you would like lay in bed all day and you not move at all. Then you would multiply it by a number that depends on your lifestyle, basically, on your activity throughout the day. For example, if you go to school, you go to university, you have a desk job, you have very light activities throughout the day, you would multiply it by 1.1 to 1.2. So you take the 80 kilograms, you multiply it by 1.1, 1.2. If you're a student or you have a desk job, if you have a more physical, like demanding or harder job, you can multiply it by 1.3, 1.4. If you maybe like work in construction or you work in a grocery store, you're walking around a lot, you're carrying around things, and yeah, you can probably multiply by 1.3 to 1.4. And if you have a really intense job, you can also like multiply by 1.5 or higher even. But you got to try out and see where you are. But yeah, it's like kind of subjective, and you have to kind of look and see for yourself how hard your lifestyle on a daily basis is and how hard your activities are throughout the day. For most people, it's probably in the 1.1 to 1.3 area. And I personally would calculate 1.2 for me. I have very light activities throughout the day. getting some messages. So for the most part, I have very light activities throughout the day, but I have, more muscle mass, more lean mass than the average person. That's why I would calculate 1.2 for me, even though I have pretty light activities throughout the day. For some people, it might make more sense to take 1.1 if you have a light day, like a desk job where you go to school. But again, you have to find out for yourself and try different numbers. And on top of that, you would now track additional steps and walks and cardio sessions that you do on top of that. For example, I said I burn about 50 calories per 1,000 steps. That's what I calculate. For some people, it might be a bit lower because they, again, don't have as much muscle mass. If you have a lot of muscle mass, you're going to burn more whatever you do, right? You're just going to burn more laying in bed, and you're also going to burn more when you do cardio or light cardio. So for some people, you might want to calculate 40 calories per 1,000 steps, and then you would add that on top. And if I do like 10,000 steps a day, I would calculate about 500 calories on top of that number. And then I would add the weightlifting sessions, the workouts on top of that. And for weights, I usually calculate about 200 to 300 calories per session. It depends on what I train and how long I train, but usually it's around 200 to 300. And I'm just going to give you an example of my most intense day and just a normal day. So in a really intense day where I basically do everything, I would calculate, again, these 80 kilograms multiplied by 24, multiplied by 1.2. Then I would add the 10 or 20,000 steps, let's just say 10,000 for this example. I would add 500 calories, and then I would add 300 calories because I train chest and back, let's say. And if I had like a low or rest day, which I really don't take, but let's say I would, let's say I just didn't do any steps, any workouts, that would be 0 obviously, and it would only be that number. Just let me calculate it quickly on my phone. So in the first example, 80 kilograms times 24, it's 1920 times 1.2, it's 2,300. Then the 10,000 steps would be 2,800 plus the 300 calorie workout. That would be 3,100. And in the second example, it would be 24 times 80 times 1.2. And yeah, it would be 2,300. So you can see it's a big difference, right? If you go for a walk and you work out, I burn 800 calories more than if I had a rest day. And that's the difference between being able to eat 1,800 calories to lose weight or being able to eat 2,600 calories in a day to be in a 500 calorie deficit. And on most days, I actually do more steps. I do, let's say, 20,000 steps, then I would burn 3,600 calories. 3,600, and then I could eat 3,100 calories and be in a 500 calorie deficit, which again makes a very big difference. And for me, only this way actually works. By keeping the steps high, by working out, and being able to eat as many calories as possible while losing fat. For me, eating 2,000 calories or below that would be not possible at all. I would starve all day, I couldn't really sleep properly, and I much prefer to put in more physical activity to then be able to have just more freedom and be able to eat more food and get lean that way. My fifth and last advice for today would be to eat low-calorie, high-volume foods. I kind of touched on that a little bit, but I want to emphasize on this again right now because basically everything comes down to this. If you think about it, you had a meal plan. Let's say you can eat 2,500 calories to lose body fat, to be in a 300 or 500 calorie deficit. If you can eat 2,500 calories and you set everything up in this way and you're just full the whole day, you're just going to lose weight without even realizing it, without even feeling it. But if you structure this plan poorly and you eat a lot of like pasta, white rice, or even worse, you drink calories or you eat sweets and fast food, you can be outrageously hungry eating the same amount of calories. If you have 3 meals, or let's say you have 3 meals and 2 snacks, and after every meal you're full for long enough so the next meal is ready, then you're just going to have no problem losing weight. right? It all comes down to that. For how long can you be full eating a certain amount of calories? It all comes down to this. If a meal can keep you full for 4 or 5 hours, and then it's time for another meal, and the same thing happens, you're full for another 4 to 5 hours, and you maybe have 2 little snacks in between, just a piece of fruit or, I don't know, like a protein bar or whatever snack you like, and you're just full the whole day because every meal was ready to eat whenever you get hungry. It's just going to be a piece of cake. It's just going to be super easy because the next meal is always ready, or it's time to eat, let's say. But on the flip side, if you eat high calorie dense meals with low volume, if you eat 800 calories and you're like super hungry 1 or 2 hours later, but on paper the next meal is only like in 4 to 5 hours, you're gonna go through phases where you're really hungry during the day and you increase the chances to eat more than you should, only because you were not full for long enough. You have to see for yourself, if you eat a certain amount of calories, a certain meal, how long are you full after that meal? If you have 3 meals and 2 snacks, let's say, and that meal is only keeping you full for 2 hours, and you ate 600 calories, then you know it's probably doesn't have the best ingredients for losing weight. Doesn't mean it's unhealthy, but it's probably not the best for losing weight. So for example, simple changes can make a very big difference. For example, eating potatoes, lentils, or beans are way better than eating white rice or pasta or white bread in terms of filling you up and keeping you full for longer, because the first group had way more fiber and micronutrients and also protein, which is just going to keep you full for longer. And you basically have to analyze what foods are you eating and how long do they keep you full, and what would potentially be a smarter choice. That is what it all comes down to. If you're full the whole day and the next meal is always like kind of ready to eat whenever you get hungry, then it's just gonna be easy, man. And this is how it works for me. My meals keep me full for 4 or 5 hours, and then I can have my next meal. But it's okay to be hungry at that point, and I need to eat. And that's actually where you want to be. You don't want to be going through a lot of hours during the day where you're really hungry, and in the worst case scenario, you're really hungry when you go to bed or in the evening and you don't have any calories left. This is where you end up like cheating a lot, or you're trying to force with willpower, you're trying to force yourself through, and this is when you have trouble sleeping, or you get up at night, you want to binge, and you're gonna destroy the whole effort for the day. Because a lot of people can't actually put like the hunger off like in the first part of the day. This was for me the case when I wasn't doing intermittent fasting. I had an easy time still then in the morning and around lunchtime, but it will always hit me like in the evening and in the afternoon. And yeah, a lot of times I would go to bed hungry and end up cheating, end up eating at night because I couldn't sleep or had a very bad night of sleep, and then it ruins the next day and everything. And yeah, this is why I also set up my plan with intermittent fasting. So I have a lot of food in the afternoon, in the evening, and also around lunchtime. And I go to bed most days happy and full. And this is really key, to find foods that keep you full for long enough so you can stick to the plan. And when you have trouble doing that, you need to look what you eat and potentially make smarter choices that have lower calories, more fiber, more micronutrients. And I can recommend what works for me the best are potatoes, lentils, beans, vegetables, and fruits. Oatmeal works very well. If you make a porridge, you can use very little oatmeal actually in water, cook it quickly in the microwave. It's gonna blow up basically, and it's gonna be a lot of volume, a lot of food for very little calories. So oatmeal, also a few nuts and seeds for my healthy fats, and that's about it. Actually, I eat these foods I just mentioned basically the whole time. I have a little variety, as I said, but that's for the most part it. I just hope I give you a good insight into like what I'm doing, what I think is important, and yeah, stay tuned for upcoming videos. Gonna make a lot more videos about dieting and also keeping you guys updated about my progress when it comes to my physique. Hopefully you enjoyed this video too. I'm gonna make a lot more videos about weightlifting too. Stay tuned for that if you want. I still can't go to the gym. I live in Europe, Germany. Gyms are still closed, but yeah, workouts at home are also fine. But yeah, I just hope I can go to the gym in the future and also record more videos there, showing you how I train in the gym. So yeah, subscribe to the channel if you want, like or dislike the video, depending on how you feel about it. And yeah, stay tuned. Peace.